Hello everyone, thank you for signing in and watching my live stream. I'm Mr. Matt and this is Dr. Tot. Dr. Tot, you want a cookie to start class? Very good. Welcome to SAT, ACT Prep. We're going to continue today with just some miscellaneous questions. These are real SAT questions in no particular categorization, just as a random drill set. But they are all they do all classify as advanced problems. So if you're watching this recording, if you find some of these problems difficult, no worries, they are written to be extremely difficult, multi-step, cross-sectional SAT, ACT problems. So no worries, but we're going to get a lot more exposure and familiarity with these problems in the subtopic lessons as we continue to put them out. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. If you have questions at any point, please let me know. If you're watching the live stream, you can put them in the live chat function. If not, you can always drop them in a comment below, and I'll get back to you ASAP. Another friendly reminder, these are live streams, obviously, so there's a little bit of a delay with the iPad, but we're going to work through that, and I'll mitigate that as much as possible. So this is the miscellaneous practice problem set on December 2nd, 2020. When we have that posted on Certified Learning Center's website, if you're watching the recording, that will be posted. The live session, we don't have it posted yet because I have a whole stream of a whole list of questions available. So after we get through with this, I'll edit this document and post it for your convenience. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So the first two problems, I'm going to give you 6 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. So to start, I'll do them in process, in steps, give you some hints. But I'll give you 6 minutes. Please look at the following two questions. Number one asks, an auto repair shop initially charged $24 for an oil change. After a managerial meeting, the decision was made to raise the price for an oil change to $25.08. This represents what percentage increase in price? Number two asks, at Sal's Sandwich Shop, a steak and cheese sub is sold for $8.95, and a chicken parmesan sub is sold for $6.50. One day, Sal sells a total of 55 sandwiches and made a total of $418.75. How many steak and cheese subs did he sell that day? So I'll give you 6 minutes, and I'll update the time per minute. After 2 minutes, I'll begin to solve to give you some hints. Okay, so looking at, I was just finishing up here number 2. I'll come back to number 2. So looking at number 1, the formula for percentage change is something that you're definitely going to have to memorize. It's going to come up a lot on the test. So that's final minus initial divided by initial times 100 if you want a percentage. So our final value of an oil change is $25.08. The initial value is $24, so 25.08 minus 24, quantity divided by 24. That's going to be 1.08 divided by 24 times 100, which is going to be 4.5%. Number 2 is also a really characteristic common SAT problem and ACT problem. This is a systems of equations problem. So because we have 2 different variables going on, we have the number of steak and cheese sandwiches Sal sells, and we have the number of chicken Parmesan sandwiches. This is a system because we have 2 unknowns, we have to be able to write at least 2 equations. That's one of the main takeaways in linear algebra. If you have the number of unknowns dictates the number of mathematical equations that you need in order to solve a linear system. So here we have 2 unknowns, so you have to be able to write at least 2 equations. If you weren't able to write 2 equations, then you'd have to be able to write one variable in terms of another. For example, if they were talking about consecutive values, which we're going to see an example of, consecutive values are next to each other on a number line, so if we pick one value to be x, we could describe the next value to be x plus 1. Here though, we can't do that because the number of steak and cheese subs doesn't relate in any way. It's not necessarily consecutive in nature to the number of chicken Parmesan subs. They're totally separate entities, so we have to be able to label them as 2 separate variables. If we label them as 2 separate variables, we have to be able to write at least 2 equations. And we're able to do that because we can usually the 2 equations that you're going to write in these types of questions, one will be for the number of items, and then the other is usually in terms of an amount of money. They can change the question's context around, so that's not exactly, it can be different characteristics, but usually it is money and number of items. So if X represents the number of steak and cheeses and Y the number of chicken Parmesan subs that he sells, then we know X plus Y has to be equal to 55. And we know that $8.95 times X, the number of steak and cheeses he sells, plus $6.50 times Y, the number of chicken Parmesan subs he sells, has to be equal to the total amount of revenue that he makes that day or on a particular day. So 8.95x plus 6.5y must be equal to $418.75. We can solve this. We can solve any system 3 ways. Usually questions are written to be most easily solved one way. But the 3 ways we can solve a system, we can solve by graphing, we can solve by substitution, and we can solve by the addition, or sometimes called the elimination method. Graphing we pretty much never want to do unless they literally give us a very clearly drawn graph that we can very specifically identify the intersection of all functions. So if you can find a point on a graph where all the functions involved intersect each other, that represents a solution to all of the equations. Now it has to be all of them, not just like 2. If you have like 3 equations and you have a graph of 3 equations, that point of intersection has to represent an intersection of all 3 equations, not just 2. That can be a hard question on an SAT as well. But we pretty much never want to use graphing when we don't have a graph. We either want to use substitution or elimination. Here I solved with substitution because there are these really odd coefficients of 8.95 and 6.5. So in order to get the other value, the other equation to have an equal but opposite magnitude coefficient in order for them to eliminate when we add, it would involve some tricky mathematics, so I just solved by substitution. If you do a little forethought, you can save some time here. Notice that they're asking for the number of steak and cheese subs at the end of the question. That's what you're trying to answer. Chicken Parmesan is irrelevant, right? They're only asking about the number of steak and cheeses. So you know that steak and cheese is represented, you picked it to represent, or I picked it to be represented as X. So I want to initially isolate for the other variable Y, because I need to get rid of Y that represents chicken Parmesan subs in order to end up with steak and cheese. Now, you will still get the same answer, the correct answer, if you do it the other way around, but you're just adding an additional step. So if you think a little bit beforehand about which one you initially isolate for, you can save a step in these problems. So when I'm going to isolate, I'm going to use X plus Y to manipulate initially because it's the simpler equation too. There's no reason to start with the more complex one. So I want to end up with X, the number of steak and cheeses, so I'm going to isolate for Y, which I did here. I'm circling it in blue. When Y is equal to 55 minus X, that means that wherever I see Y in the more complex equation, the second equation, I can sub out for that value. So I highlighted that in red there. So everywhere, well, the one place I saw Y, I inserted 55 minus X. You need to make sure that you insert that or substitute that in with parentheses. When you do that, you need to distribute that 6.5 to both the 55 and the negative X. So we're going to have 8.95X plus 6.5 times 55 is 357.5. 6.5 times negative X is going to be a negative 6.5X. Combining like terms on the left-hand side, 8.95x minus 6.5x is going to give us a 2.45x plus 357.5 is equal to 418.95. Subtracting the 357.5 on both sides, we get 2.45x is equal to 61.45, and then we just need to divide on both sides by 2.45. And so 61.45 divided by 2.45 is going to be 25.08. And that's closest to 25. Answer selection A. So the answer to number 1 was C. The answer to number 2 was A. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's take a look at 3 and 4. So I'll give you 6 minutes. Number 3 asks, an auto repair shop initially charged $26 for an oil change. After a managerial meeting, the decision was made to raise the price for an oil change to $30.68. This represents what percentage increase in price? Number 4 asks, at Sal's Sandwich Shop, a steak and cheese sub is sold for $10.95, and a chicken Parmesan sub is sold for $8.95. One day, Sal sells a total of 93 sandwiches and made a total of $916.35. How many chicken Parmesan subs did he sell that day? So I'll give you 6 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. Okay, so for number 3, our final cost was $30.68. Our initial cost was $26. So final minus initial divided by initial times 100 is the formula for percentage change. So we're going to do 30.68 minus 26 divided by 26 times 100. So that's going to give us 4.68 divided by 26, which is going to be 0.18 times 100. So writing that as a percentage is 18%, which is answer selection D. For number 4, we can write 2 separate equations, one for the number of items. We know that he sold a total of 93 sandwiches overall. And the other equation we can write in terms of the revenue that he generated that day. We know the cost per sub, per steak and cheese sub is $10.95. And the cost of each chicken parmesan sub is $8.95. So 10.95x plus 8.95y has to be equal to his revenue on any particular day. So we're going to set that equal to $916.35. Thinking ahead a little bit, now I'm asking you for the number of chicken parmesan subs. So that's y. We need to end up with y. So that means I need to initially get rid of x. So we're going to change our strategy from the last problem, or the last example, number 2. And instead of isolating for y, I'm going to isolate for x. So x is equal, the more simple equation, x plus y is equal to 93. I'm isolating for x there. So x is equal to 93 minus y. So anywhere that I see an x in the more complicated equation, I'm going to substitute in 93 minus y. So then I'm distributing that 10.95 inside the parentheses to both the 93 and the negative y. So that turns into 10.95 times 93 is 1018.35. So 1018.35 minus 10.95y plus 8.95y is equal to 916.35. Combining the y's on the left-hand side will leave me with negative 2y. And then subtracting that 1018.35 on both sides is going to end up with a negative 102 on the right-hand side. So I get negative 2y is equal to negative 102. And then dividing by negative 2, I get y is equal to 51. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Let's look at the last cluster with those 2 problem types. I'm going to give you 6 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. Okay, so for number 5, our final price was $24.60. Our initial price was $20.50. So we're going to have 24.6 minus 20.5, quantity divided by 20.5 times 100. That's going to give us 4.1 divided by 20.5. That's 4.1 divided by 20.5 is 0.2. 0.2 written as a percentage is 20%. So the answer to number 5 is answer selection C. For 6, we can write two separate equations, one in terms of revenue, the other in terms of number of items sold. So the number of items sold is just x plus y is equal to 120. The revenue is going to be equal to 995x plus 795y. And that's going to be set equal to the total revenue made that day of $1,078. Distributing, excuse me. So notice that now we're being asked again about the steak and cheese subs. So I want to isolate for y, the opposite variable. Isolating for y is equal to 120 minus x, and then substituting that value, 120 minus x, in for y. I get 9.95x plus, distributing that 7.95 inside the parentheses, I get plus 954 minus 7.95x is equal to 1,078. Combining the x's together, that will give me 2x plus 954 is equal to 1,078. Subtracting the 954 on both sides gives me 2x is equal to 124. And then dividing by 2 gives me x is equal to 62. And that's answer selection C. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at the next cluster of questions. So these clusters have 3 problems in them each, but the last 2 are kind of interrelated with each other. They're kind of inverse versions. The last 2 aren't as involved as the other questions we've been seeing. So question number 7 asks, the sum of 6 consecutive integers is 153. What is the greatest of these 6 integers? 8 asks, if a cube has a surface area of 150, then what is its area? Excuse me, that should say volume. That's a typo, I'm sorry. What is its volume? I do apologize. So if a cube has a surface area of 150, then what is its volume? And then number 9, conversely, if a cube has a volume of 729, what is its surface area? So I'll give you 6 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. Okay, so for 7, if the sum of 6 consecutive integers is 53, then let the first integer be equal to x. Then each integer after that is simply one more than the one previous. And so if we define the first one to be x, the next one would be x plus 1. The following integer would be x plus 2. The following integer after that would be x plus 3, so on and so forth, as long as we're talking about consecutive integers or consecutive numbers. So we can say that x plus the quantity x plus 1 plus the quantity x plus 2 plus the quantity x plus 3 plus the quantity x plus 4 plus the quantity x plus 5 has to be equal to 153. Because these are just addition signs on the outside of the parentheses and not subtraction signs, you can just simply remove the parentheses. If they were subtraction signs, you need to make sure that that subtraction, that negative, would apply to every single value inside the parentheses. That's a really common mistake that a lot of students make. But here they're addition, so we can just simply remove the parentheses and collect like terms. So that's going to give us 6x plus 15 is equal to 153. Subtracting 15 on both sides, we're going to get 6x is equal to 138. And then dividing by 6, we're going to get x is equal to 23. But don't be misled by achieving the isolation of the variable. A lot of times students think, oh, well, I isolated the variable, so my answer is 23. You have to go back to the question and see what the question is actually asking you and how you should use that variable, that answer, in order to actually answer the question. So they're asking here for the greatest possible value of these 6 integers. The greatest integer would not be x, it would be the last term, which is x plus 5. So x plus 5, when x is equal to 23, is going to be 28. So the answer to number 7 is A. For 8, you need to know the formulas for surface area and volume. So surface area is the two-dimensional space around a shape. The surface area, actually I have a little box right here. This isn't a cube, but this is a rectangular prism. A cube would have all equal sides, of course. But the surface area is the space around the shape. The volume is the amount of space inside of it. So you could think about the difference as the surface area could represent the amount of paint that you would need to paint the exterior of a three-dimensional shape, whereas the volume is the amount of water or the amount of paint that you could pour inside of it. That's the conceptual difference. And they are different things. They're not the same. And they're usually not equal to each other. Under rare conditions, they can be equal, but usually they're not. So if we know that the surface area is equal to 6 times the side length squared, why is that? Notice that side length squared is the area of each face, and there's 6 faces in a cube. You have front, back, left, right, top, bottom, right? So we have 6 faces, and then the area of each of those faces is just side length times side length, because each face is a square. So surface area is equal to 6 times side length squared. Volume of a cube is length times width times height. Well, volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. A cube is a special type of rectangular prism where length, width, and height are all equal to each other. So we can represent them, each of those side lengths, as the same variable or with the same variable. So volume is equal to side length cubed. So if they tell us that the cube has a surface area of 150, I know that surface area in general for every single cube is equal to 6 times side length squared. They're telling me that the surface areas of this particular cube is equal to 150. So because they're both equal to side length, the formula is set equal to side length, and the given information is set equal to side length. Excuse me, not side length, surface area, excuse me. So because surface area is equal to 6L squared and surface area is also equal to 150, I can say that 6L squared is equal to 150. I can set them equal to each other and solve for L. Dividing by 6, I get side length squared is equal to 25. Taking the square root of both sides, I'll find that the side length of this cube is 5. Once I have side length, I can plug that back into the volume equation, or formula rather. So volume is equal to side length cubed. So the volume of this cube is going to be 5 cubed. 5 cubed is 5 times 5, which is 25, times 5, which is 125. So the answer to number 8 is D. And for number 9, they say if a cube has a volume of 729, what is its surface area? So here it's just using the opposite pathway, but the same type of problem, the same formulas, but just working backwards in the alternate direction. So I know that volume of every single cube is equal to side length cubed. They tell me that the volume of this particular cube is 729. So I can set those two sides of the equations equal to each other because they both are set equal to V, volume. So side length cubed is equal to 729. Taking the cube root of both sides. If you have a graphing calculator, you can you can take 729 and press the caret button, which looks like a little arrow sign. And then remember that you can convert from a radical to a fractional exponent by just, excuse me, that's a statement. You can convert from a radical to a fractional exponent. So taking the third root of 729 is the same thing as raising 729 to the 1/3 power. So just make sure that you put the 1/3 in parentheses. But if you have a graphing calculator, that's a handy little trick. If you have to take the 5th root, the 6th root, a really large root, and you don't have an nth root button on your calculator, it's just raising it to a fractional exponent. So the third root of 729, or in other words, what number raised to the 3rd power is 729, and that's 9. So the side length of the cube is 9. Once I know that, I can substitute it into the surface area equation, 6L squared. So 6 times L squared is going to be 6 times 9 squared. 9 squared is 81, and 6 times 81 is 486. So the answer to number 9 was A, 486. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at the next cluster. Question number 10 asks, the sum of 4 consecutive odd integers is 84. What is the greatest of these 4 integers? Notice the difference in that question. That's very tricky, so you have to read carefully there. The sum of 4 consecutive odd integers is 84. What is the greatest of these 4 integers? Number 11 asks, if a cube has a surface area of 384, then what is its volume? That continues to be a problem here. Volume, not area. That doesn't make sense because area is 2-dimensional, so we want a 3-dimensional measure of volume. If a cube has a volume, so number 11 says if a cube has a surface area of 384, what is its volume? Number 12 says if a cube has a volume of 1,331, then what is its surface area? I'll give you 6 minutes. After 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. Okay, so looking at number 10, what we can do is, because these values are odd consecutive integers, the difference between them on a number line is 2 units instead of just 1. So if the first term is x, we could pick the second odd term to be represented as x plus 2. The third odd integer would be x plus 4. And the fourth odd integer would be x plus 6. The reason, again, is because if it's odd, then it's going to be every other one, not just every value consecutively on a number line. I'm just finishing up number 12 here. So if we say x plus the quantity x plus 2 plus the quantity x plus 4 plus the quantity x plus 6 is equal to 84, then we can simplify that into 4x plus 12 is equal to 84. Subtracting 12 on both sides, we get 4x is equal to 72. So x is going to be equal to 18, which is answer selection. It's answer selection B, but again, don't be tricked. Almost got tricked there. That's not what they're asking for, and they're being very tricky by offering that as an answer selection. So what is the greatest of these 4 integers? The greatest is going to be x plus 6. So x plus 6 is going to be 18 plus 6, which is 24, not 18. So the answer here is going to be C, 24. Number 11, if the surface area is 384, then setting 384 equal to 6L squared, we can solve for L being equal to 8, and then substituting that into the volume equation. And I'm so sorry, when we were solving during the independent time, I got 11 and 12 mixed up, so I had to stop, and we're solving for the surface area for 11 and then the volume for the other side. I'm sorry, I had gotten mixed up there. But if we know that the side length is equal to 8, then we can plug that into the volume equation. Volume is equal to side length cubed. So volume is equal to 8 cubed, which is going to be 512, and that is also answer selection C. And number 12, if we have volume is equal to 1,331, we can take the 1/3 power of 1,331 to solve for the side length being equal to 11. Or in other words, we're taking the third root of 1,331. Or in other words, we're asking ourselves what number raised to the third power is 1,331, and that's 11. So the side length of this cube is 11, so the surface area is going to be 6 times 11 squared. That's going to be 6 times 121, which is 726. So the answer to number 12 is B. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's look at the next cluster of problems, and this is going to bring us up to the last problems that we'll go through today in today's session. So number 13 asks, the sum of 5 consecutive integers is 70. What is the greatest of these 5 integers? So the sum of 5 consecutive integers is 70. What is the greatest of these 5 integers? Number 14, if a cube has a surface area of 1,350, what is its volume? And if a cube has a volume of 9,261, then what is its surface area? I'll give you 6 minutes, and after 2 minutes, I'll start to solve. Okay, so number 13. If we let the first term be equal to x, then the second term, they're consecutive here, so they have a marginal distance of 1, not 2. If they're odd or evens, then we're skipping over a value as we go to each term. Here they're just merely consecutive, so it's just plus 1 each time. So the first term, if the first term is x, the second term would be x plus 1, the third term would be x plus 2, fourth term would be x plus 3, so on and so forth. So we could say that x plus the quantity x plus 1 plus the quantity x plus 2 plus the quantity x plus 3 plus the quantity x plus 4 is equal to 70. Combining like terms, we're going to get 5x plus 10 is equal to 70. Subtracting 10, we get 5x is equal to 60. Dividing by 5 on both sides, we'll find that x is equal to 12. But that is not the answer to the question, because x is the first term. The greatest term is going to be the fifth term, which is represented by the expression x plus 4. So if x is equal to 12, then x plus 4 would be equal to 16. So the answer to 13 is D. For 14, if the surface area is 1,350, then we can set 1,350 equal to the surface area, which we also know is equal to 6 times the side length squared of a cube, of every single cube. So we can set those two sides equal to each other if they're both equal to surface area. So 6 times L squared is equal to 1,350. So dividing by 6, L squared is equal to 225. The square root of 225 is 15, so the side length of this cube is 15. Substituting that into the volume equation, side length cubed, then 15 cubed is 3,375, which is answer selection A. And lastly, number 15, if the cube has a volume of 9,261, then we know that the volume of any cube is equal to side length cubed. The volume of this particular cube is 9,261, so we can set those two sides equal to each other. So side length cubed is equal to 9,261, taking the cube root of both sides, or in other words, raising 9,261 to the 1/3 power, will give us a side length of 21. Substituting 21 into the formula for surface area, we're going to get 6 times 21 squared. 21 squared is 441, and 6 times 441 is 2,646. And that's answer selection C. If you have any questions on anything that we've done today, then please let me know. If you find these videos helpful, then please like and subscribe and share with your friends. But otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. And Dr. Tot, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Tot, come on, Dr. Tot. You want to say bye? Come on. Come on, let's say bye to everybody. Come on. Dr. Tot is getting a little bit lazy now. Come on, you want to say bye? Say not really. I just want my cookie. There you go. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you all on Friday.